Assalamu alaikum everybody and welcome to the first lesson of Learn to Read Qur'an. So this is a course with a few different units in it. If you have a look at the link in the description box below, then you will see the link to the website where you can download a copy of this course. It's all free and inshallah hopefully you'll find it useful. Also, if you're able to print it out, that might also be beneficial to you, just because then you can make notes on the sides of the paper while you're looking at these videos for the lessons. I'm going to do each unit as a separate lesson, so inshallah, let's get started. So we will start with the alphabet. I'll just quickly backtrack and show you. So if you have a look at so this is the beginning of the booklet. If you have a look at the table of contents, it gives you, sorry, I'll take that off. What's that doing there? It gives you an idea of what you've got that we're going to cover in this course. So you can see we go through a fair few things and we end up, inshallah, at the end of this course, learning how to be able to recite surahs of the Qur'an. Then we actually start, unit one actually starts with the numbers. It's not something I'm going to go through too much. It's really just a reference page, because what can happen is once you've actually learned how to read Quran and then you start reading Quran, you can see the numbers of the ayahs at the end, and sometimes it gets a bit confusing as to what number is, equates to which number in English. So this is just really a reference page for you to have a look and flick back to if you need to know what the numbers are, inshallah. So as I said, we're going to start with the alphabet. And obviously, that's a brilliant place to start. Without knowing the alphabet, you're not going to know how to be able to read any language. In any language, you're not going to be able to know. So this is the Arabic alphabet. And you can see what I've done is I've got the letters, they start at the top here. This is the first letter that we're going to start with. Now, Arabic, just for those that don't know, reads from right to left. So you actually start from the right and you work your way to the left. So this first letter that we're going to start with is Alif. And if I draw it down for you, Alif. So that was me just sort of going on top of the letter itself. I'll just take that off so you can see it clearly now. Okay, so that is Alif. Now, the idea behind these videos to accompany the course is that you will be able to then play back and repeat as much as you need to. So I'm not going to do a great deal of repetition in each video, because then you can actually go back and repeat as and when and at how much you need to. So now we'll start on line 2, and here's the Arabic for 2. Let's just put that back there. That's the Arabic for 2. And this letter here, you can see the first one here, we're going to do this one here. It's got a boat shape and there's a dot below. So this is the letter Ba, Ba. And what I tell my students is that dot below is your clue. So B for below and B for Ba. Arabic is a language of dots. If you can recognize the shape and you see how many dots and where the dots are, that gives you the clue to the letter. So this is the letter Ba. And this is how you would write it. You'd start from that side, and the dot would be at the bottom. So let's just make that clear for you. Okay. Then the next letter here. So again, it's a very similar shape. It's like a boat shape, but this has 2 dots at the top, and this is the letter Ta. Now this isn't exactly like the letter T in English, because T is a little bit harsher in sound. The letter Ta is the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth without touching the back of the front teeth. So just keep the tongue on the roof of the mouth. Ta. The next letter here, again a boat shape. And if I was going to write it, I would start on the right and I'd go to the left. But there I've got 3 dots here. So 3 dots, and that's your clue really. 3 dots is the letter Tha. Okay, so if you need to hear those letters again, just take the video back and go through those letters again. The next letter here, this is the letter Jim. Now sometimes crazy ways of remembering things help. So this dot in the middle looks like a big open mouth, with a dot in the middle. And as I used to say to my students, just imagine that's your mouth with a dot of jam in the middle. So that is J for jam and J for jeem. The next letter just looks like a big open mouth, doesn't it? And as somebody once remarked, it actually looks like a big open mouth. And this is the letter ha. And the way I usually describe that to my students, it sounds like dragon's breath coming out, doesn't it? Ha. Then this letter here, at the end here, I've got ha. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that this is actually in a different color, isn't it? I put it in red to mark that it doesn't sound exactly like the others. We've had, on line 2, we had, or if we start at the beginning, we had alif, then ba, ta, fa, jeem, ha, and now listen to this one, ha. So you've got this ah noise that goes with it. And all of the letters in a color will make that kind of ah noise. They're called thick, heavy letters. And we'll talk more about those in other lessons as well as we go on subsequently in this course. So now we're on line 4. This little letter here is the letter dal. I'll say it again, dal. The next letter that looks very similar to it is the letter
ذال.
So see that dot there, that dot, and why I say it so markedly, because the for that, or this even, and that is the letter zal. It sounds like the in this and that. Then here, this letter, it's not exactly the same shade as the other red letters. It still does have a color to it. So you can hear raw. It still has this R noise, and this is like an R in English. I could put that in a capital, couldn't I? Like an R in English, but you can hear this thick heaviness to it. Raw. Okay, so that's that letter. And it's companion letter. I say companion because it looks very similar, doesn't it? This is the letter Z. So like the Z noise in buzz, this is Z. Okay, so on line 4, just to reiterate one more time for you, dal,
ذال.
ra, za. Okay, let's move to line 5. And you can see that little circle actually in Arabic is a 5. Okay, so this first letter here, this is seen. And as one of my students once said, this looks like the waves of the sea. Yeah, those waves there, those little curls, little waves there, look like the waves of the sea. So that's how she remembered this. This was seen. Then the next letter here that looks very similar, but again has 3 dots. Yeah, see those 3 dots? Remember, Arabic is very much a language of dots. If you see the dots and the shape of the letter, you'll know what you've got. This is the letter sheen. So if that was the waves of the sea on seen, then these are the pebbles on the shore. So this is sheen. And yeah, I know it sounds a bit crazy, but sometimes crazy ways help you to remember things that you don't actually have a reference point to just yet. Okay, so then you can see the next 2 letters here. They're in that red, so red letters are going to be the thick, heavy ones. This first one here is sod, sod. And then this one is Lord, Lord. They're not easy sounds, and if this is the first time that you're looking and you're listening to the way the Arabic alphabet sounds, you might have to just go over, this lesson a fair few times just to get it into your, like into your kind of voice pattern to be able to say it. Okay, let's move on. We've got line 6 here, and here you can see again, you've got 2 letters, one after the other, because remember we're reading right to left. This is the letter ta, this one here, ta. And how I make that is by pressing the tip of my tongue onto the roof of the mouth, and then the back of my tongue becomes thick and heavy. almost like you're bunching a muscle. The tongue is a muscle, and just like you can bunch any muscle, in your arms maybe, like how kids do when they want to show you how strong they are, that kind of bunching your muscle. The tongue is a muscle also, it's fully a muscle. So the back of the tongue, if you bunch up that part of it, it becomes thick and it creates this thickness in the letter. And that's what all of these red, or even this raw here, that's what all of these letters have, is this thickness to the back of the tongue, and that creates the thickness in the sound of the letter. It elevates the sound of the letter. So this one, we're back here, this one is ba. Then the one next to it, which looks very similar but has a dot, and that is very important because it makes it a different letter. This is va, and va has my tongue through my teeth and the back of my tongue thick and bunched up. So this is why I'm getting that thick sound. Then this letter here, we're on this letter here now, and this is Ain. Now this letter comes from the middle of the throat. Arabic, in fact, is the only language that I know of that uses all the parts that you can to make noise to make different letters. So this letter here that we're doing now comes from the middle of the throat. This is Ain. And it's a soft noise. It's not a thick, heavy noise because it's not in red, is it? So it's not thick and heavy. And it's not a strangled noise. You'd think you'd have to sort of really try very hard to get into the middle of the throat to make this. But actually, if you try too hard, you'll squeeze those throat muscles and you won't be able to open up the throat to get into the middle of the throat, which is what this letter needs. This is Ein. Okay, then the last one on the line here, you can see it's in red. So yes, it's a thick, heavy letter. This is Rein. And for me, what I usually say to my students, for me, it just sounds like gargling. It's almost like a gargle letter. I'll just take some of this away because sometimes it gets a bit too much. I get a bit happy with my pen here on the page, so I'm just rubbing out some of this. Okay, so this letter here that we're looking at, Rein. And if you can't make this letter, and this letter is at the top of the throat, then the best thing you can do to exercise those throat muscles is actually gargling. And if you're gargling water, see how far down you can gargle in your throat before the water just, sort of goes down your throat and you can't control that gargle anymore. But gargling is literally the only way that you can control those throat muscles to be able to make these throat letters. So here we are, we had Rein. Okay, we're on line number 7, and remember we're reading right to left. So we're starting here with this letter. And this letter here with the little head and the long foot, that long foot. And I say that on purpose because this is the letter Fa. And you can hear it's got a lot of air in this letter. Each of the Arabic letters for the Qur'an has characteristics to it, and each letter has a minimum of 5 characteristics. And one of the characteristics of this letter here, this first one that we're doing, is that it has a lot of air that flows through it. And this is the letter Fa. And you make that by taking your top 2 teeth, your top 2 incisors, and just gently placing them inside the bottom lip. Fa. So very much like F in English, I guess. Okay, here we go. We've got the last of the thick, heavy letters. It's the last one on the page that is in the red color. So you know, as a red letter, it is going to be thick and heavy. It's going to have that thickness, the bunching up of the tongue at the back. Oh, this is the letter off, off, and it's as far back on the tongue as you can get without actually going into the throat. So that's how far back it needs to be. The next letter here at the end is the letter Kaf. And I love the way one of my students actually described this. She said, "Oh, well, this little thing inside looks like, how a joey would look inside a kangaroo." So she called this the kangaroo letter, and this helped her to remember that this was Kaf. So that's Kaf. Okay, we're on line 8. This long letter here, long letter, and I say that on purpose because then that hopefully will help you to remember that this is the letter lam. It's the letter lam, long lam. Then this letter here, this is the letter meme, meme. And I guess you could put an M next to that to help you remember that this was meme. This letter here, this is the letter noon. Now, if I draw it for you, start there, and there's the dot just there. And again, one of my students said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to remember that by thinking that's the sun at high noon," and that's how she remembered what this letter would be. See, these little tricks sometimes can help you to get a reference point, a handhold onto these letters. So then we had noon right here, noon. Okay, we're nearly there. We're on the last line. This letter here that just looks like a little circle is actually the letter ah. Now, hopefully you can hear that. This is a very deep sound. It's right sort of between the two collarbones, if you were going to think about it anatomically. This is the letter ah, and it's quite deep. It's kind of like the noise or the sound and the breath that you would bring out if you're trying to warm up your hands on a cold day. So this is ah. Okay, this letter here, one of my favorites, it's called wow. Yeah, wow. This is the letter wow. So hopefully you'll remember that one. And this last letter here is yeah. Yeah. And you might say, hang on, you just said that was the last letter, but there's two more. Well, that's because actually this letter here, yeah, is officially the last letter in the Arabic alphabet. These two letters here that I've got that I put at the end of the line, they come up later on. We'll see why they're not actually part of the official alphabet, but we bring them here on this page in this course just so that we have a reference point for them. This is the letter Hamza, Hamza. And this is what they call a ta marbuta. And yes, don't be scared. Yes, I know that was an Arabic word, and I will explain what that means. It means a tied up ta. If I take you back up here, see this letter ta that we had, 2 dot ta? Imagine you took those two ends and you tied them up. Oh, that wasn't very good. I went over the dot, but you know what I mean. I will tie up those two ends, and if I tie up those two ends, it becomes a circle. Whoops, becomes a circle, and you end up with this letter here, which is like a circular tear with 2 dots. But remember I said Arabic is a language of dots. So by looking at the dots, you can see what you've got, because you can see that you've got 2 dots above. The only letter really that has 2 dots that's not on some sort of curly thing, because a curly thing there is off, is ta. Don't worry too much about these two last letters here. We'll go through them when we meet them, and we will meet them in this course. So everybody, that is the end of lesson 1. We've gone through the alphabet, and what you need to do really is you need to keep on going over, these letters until you can say them in your sleep, perhaps, because the more you practice, the more you'll be able to remember what the letters are. So I'm doing a very bad job of rubbing out all my scribblings on here, but you understand what I'm trying to do. And yes, so if you look in the description box below, you will see the link to the website where you can download the whole of this PDF for this course. And next time, we'll move on from here. So inshallah, next time, when you've gone through and you know the alphabet, then go on to lesson 2, everybody. So see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.